Every sacrifice we make needs to be for the greater good. The second it isn't, the second we lose sight of that, it's all over. The thing is, you're not the greater good. You're not strong enough.
I am strong.
How many people had to risk their lives to save you? In here, you are part of a system. The wards keep my officers happy. The happier my officers are, the harder they work to keep us going.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just the level of crazy that defines this week's episode of The Walking Dead.
And
Welcome
sadly,
to Biters.
And sadly also defines the technical ineptitude of this show.
Yes, that was me holding my phone with a recording app up against my TV. We're on a budget. Anyway, welcome.
A budget? What budget? Let's see what I got in my pocket. I got a couple pennies and a dime. That's our that's our budget. There it is in a nutshell.
All right, welcome
It's late.
to Biters.
Biters.
The weekly podcast about The Walking Dead and all things zombie. Once again, I am one of your hosts, Jeff Marsick, and with me on the other side is Kirk Manley.
Yes, I am. I am here. Barely.
We're recording this late at night. Usually we do this at lunchtime, but we're doing this late at night. It's 10 o'clock, which
And
for
I'm
Kirk is...
an old man. I don't know about the rest. I don't know about our listeners, but I'm an old man. It is past my bedtime.
Yeah, by like 2 hours.
That daylight savings time is still kicking my ass. Oh man!
Lights out at the nursing home at this time for Kirk. So yeah,
it's hard to move my walk around late. Sorry. All right, I'll shut up. Go.
All right, so we're here to talk about this week's episode, Slabtown, which featured.
What the hell does that name mean?
I have no idea. I'm trying to figure it out.
I'm like, is that like a term that's used in emergency rooms or something, or in morgues? Seems like I've heard that term associated with morgues before. Slabtown. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they use it in the? I went through did they use it in the show? And I didn't.
Yeah, they usually. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Usually they do, and they didn't. Well, not that I recall.
No.
I don't remember that ever being mentioned, but it's a weird kind of a weird name, but it's creepy and it goes with the creepy episode. So
yeah. Before we get to talking about this episode, the first thing I want to mention is Laura Swank had written in on the Facebook page. We questioned last week about the four walls and a roof episode. What significance, if any, was with the picture of the Last Supper on the wall when Tyrese puts down Bob. And so she weighed in on what her theory was. She said that, like she said, this is just her theory. The Last Supper in the Bible was a celebration of Seder, a Jewish feast of community that takes place at the start of Passover. It was the last time Jesus and his disciples were together before they were torn apart. So, my theory is that the gathering in the church was a reflection of this final gathering where the group is together celebrating community before they are torn apart. Also, it was the first Eucharist where Jesus told his disciples to eat the bread and wine, quote, eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, unquote, a kind of sick and demented nod to the hunters. She puts in there, she goes, ugh. Plus, one of...
exclamation point.
one more religious reference in this week's episode with the... and then there was... Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. There was... this week, there was a Caravaggio painting that had a religious... connotation to it. But anyway, so thank you, Laura.
Yes, thanks, Laura. It was
works
informative.
For me.
Yeah, I think she's spot on. I mean, and it also puts that scene in Four Walls and a Roof in a better context for me, because it was kind of this celebratory. They had all the food and they were sitting down for the first time as a group and they were drinking wine and. Yep. It did have that Last Supper feel to it, which is kind of now in the context of Laura's theory, much more ominous.
Yeah.
And of course, immediately right after they start to split up.
Yeah. So,
So
oh, and then I also want to say Tom DeRosa put a picture up. He went to Rhode Island Comic Con this past weekend. Got a picture, and like I said, if you don't get a picture, then you weren't there. And well, he was there because he's got a picture with Scott Wilson.
that's right. It doesn't look photoshopped to me.
No, I think it's authentic.
I think he was really there. No, Tom's a good guy. He's a big supporter of Z-Girl and the Four Tigers as well. I want a big shout out to Tom. We see him at all the cons and appreciate all of his support.
So, all right. So
I wanted to just one thing I wanted to do before we get into it was, you haven't been live tweeting. I noticed. I don't know if that's just a bad timing situation with the.
It is. It's been rough the past couple of weeks. So
because I miss your sense of humor on there. Sometimes it's pretty damn funny. So, but there was in spite of that, there were some funny ones last night. At TWD Family tweeted, Carol is at the hospital, ? Get ready for that place to burn down. I like that one. At My Vogan Poetry said, Walking Dead has turned into an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Thought that was kind of cute. _Walking Rick said, Beth unlocked the unlimited ammo glitch for about 30 seconds. At Bonalicious tweeted, you prick, that's Beth's lolly. Beth's lolly. I knew I was going to mess that one up. At Carl Grimed tweeted, this cop needs that lollipop shoved up his ASS. At The Walking Humor tweeted, you know your sanctuary is effed when you see Carol. I thought that was great. And he had another one too. So this is at The Walking Humor. Carol probably came all this way just to let Beth know she's Daryl's side bitch. So we get some really funny live tweets. Everybody should definitely follow. Well, you can follow me at BatmanKM, at BatmanKM. You can follow Jeff at JMarzik, and also Biters, at Biters Podcast.
Gary Dombrowski wrote one into the Facebook page, and if I had been live tweeting, because it's what I had thought of when I was watching it. If I had been live tweeting, I probably would have dropped it. Was he called it Green's Anatomy, which play on Grey's Anatomy, and totally spot on. So,
yeah, that was funny. There was a couple other good ones about guinea pig bacon. About guinea pig bacon.
Guinea pig bacon.
I didn't write them down though.
Yeah, that was for some reason there was something
bacon.
There was something really super creepy about eating guinea pig.
What did he say? It's good enough for Peru or something.
Yeah,
some slam on some South American country. I didn't. It's good enough for Peru. Before we get into the episode again, too, there was again more and more references to clocks and time, and especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that, and I know that I've heard Gimple interviewed, I think, on Talking Dead, and they try to do some sort of a reference to a clock or time to show that to mark the episode, and the clock that when it first opens up the shot, it shows a 4 and a 5. So obviously episode 4 of season 5. But my question is, and there've been other episodes you can go back and see that they did the same thing with 3 of 5 and 2 of 5, but then there's a second clock shot right after the first one. Like it starts with Beth's eyes, and it goes to the clock, then it goes back, I think, to Beth, then it goes back to the clock again. And that time it shows 8 and 9, and then it does another cut and back, and then it shows 9 and 10. And I just want to throw out to listeners and to you, I don't know what those references would be, why it was significant to show those numbers. I don't know how they tie the 4 and the 5. I don't know how the other ones tie in. Maybe it's some sort of inside joke, or maybe it means absolutely nothing. It's just numbers on a clock.
Well, there's so much that you just, I'm so used to watching shows now and not just taking it at face value. Everything has something. I almost have to watch a show like The Flash. I almost have to watch The Flash twice, because the first time I'm so cued to all the little Easter eggs that I'm probably going to find. And we've seen in The Walking Dead too. There's not ever things aren't like throwaway.
Right.
You got to pay attention to these little things that are floating around. All right.
Okay.
Ready to start it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
Right. All right. What was your
All
good?
Right. So I don't know. What was your good?
Okay.
I have a feeling based on the things I've seen you write, you and I are going to end up on opposite sides this time, which is kind of good. We haven't done that in a while, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Overall, I thought it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Show me yours. I'll show you mine.
Well, playing doctor, I guess, appropriate with this episode, right? But anyway, yeah, I thought overall it was a good episode. I wasn't disappointed. I went in with low expectations, knowing that we were going to get away from the core group and get away from the main story, and find out about Beth, who in the past had not been one of my favorite characters. And not really been developed or was rich, in my opinion, in her portrayal so far to date. But I was maybe that was the reason, but I was overall pleasantly surprised. I'd say I'd give it probably about, I'd say 3.75 in terms of headshots. I think the opener I was a 5, and the other 2 episodes I've been 4.5 or 4, something like that. So I give about 3.75. What about you?
Well, since you're going out to 2 decimal places, I will. I'll follow as well.
Risky for a guy like me with a lack of ability in math.
I'm going to go considerably lower, and I'm going to put it probably like the 2.34 range. If we're being exacting. I thought it was a great episode for just placeholding, for just walking in place and tapping the brakes and just taking a break. I didn't feel like there were little flashes of coolness in there. There were little flashes of things I liked, but overall, I still don't like Beth. I didn't think the actress brought much to the role. I've seen her act better. And yeah, I'm the bad guys and the whole, we've seen that before, and it just seemed to be kind of a rehash. It was really weird too, is when I was watching this, I made a note, wrote down in my notes that this felt like I was watching a Sam Raimi movie. There was some kind of, just the way it was lit, the synthesizer music going in the background, some of the cheesy, when they cut through, what was her name, Joan? When they cut through Joan's arm, it was just pretty overly bloody, and it just had a very B-movie feel to how it was shot, which I thought was odd, especially given how the season has been so far. So the whole thing for me was just a little off.
I saw that exactly what you're describing, and for me that was a plus. To me, that added to the sense of it being kind of really creepy and standalone and almost like a haunted house of horrors, B-movie type of thing. I think that's what they were going for. I think that she's kind of wakes up in this nightmare, almost like 70s exploitation movie nightmare, and it definitely had that feel, to me, for me, and I like that. I agree that it was a tapping of the brakes. I agree that it really kind of derailed the momentum that we've built over the previous 3 episodes. But as a standalone episode, I thought it was solid. And when I compare standalone episodes to previous seasons, they don't even compare. Like take the 2 episodes of the governor, on his walkabout. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are trash compared to this. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I thought this was, inferior to the first 3, but superior to previous efforts at this kind of episode in the series.
Well, one of the things is, so the actress who played, well, first of all, Officer Dawn Lerner, and it was disconcerting to me when Beth wakes up and the door opens and in comes this what looked like freshly pressed police officer with the doctor, and it was kind of that weird. I'm sure a lot of people probably had the same thought where you're like, "Whoa, is this a dream sequence?
Right.
Where are we? Was this prior to the whole?" And the actress Christine Woods, she's done a bunch of things. What was she known for? Everybody knows her for, well, she was in Flash Forward, if you remember that show that didn't last all that long. NCIS she's done.
What was she in Flash Forward?
That was
a good
Janice
show.
Hawk. Janice Hawk. She's done an episode of Castle. So anyway, so she's. I thought she was a really good actress.
Did she remind you at all of Anna Lucia from Lost?
Oh my God, you in Lost? No. Actually, she reminded me of Carla Gugino, from, my kids were just watching Spy Kids, so I saw her on Spy Kids, but Carla Gugino from Sin City and, a bunch of other things. But she, there was just something about, okay, so going back to the whole haunted house thing, when Beth is standing there and Dawn Lerner, Officer Lerner, tells her, "We found you surrounded by rotters, basically we saved you, so you owe us." And then we go to commercial break, and that's how it ended. And I remember going to commercial break going, okay, I kind of dig that. You owe us. We saved your life. Now you owe us. And that's always a bad deal when someone lays that out. No good can come from that statement.
Right.
And there was, so I expected more to come out of her, and her whole thing about I was kind of sipping the Kool-Aid that she was serving about we all have to do our part, and I think what I glommed onto, what I especially grabbed onto, was just her belief that, hey, they're going to come rescue us, like they're coming back, and I don't think we'd seen that so much in all the seasons so far. Everybody's been like, we've got to fend for ourselves, or we've got to get to this place. And here you have a character who's, sharply dressed uniform. She totally believes that, hey, they're coming back for us. They're going to be coming here. But then it seemed like they never quite capitalized on the character. And then she became quasi-governor-ish throughout the episode. And I think I lost the connect to her. My relationship to her, as brief as it was when Trevitt dies, or no, when the Dr. Edwards says that he can't save the guy on the table because he's bleeding internally, right. And she turns around and just smacks Beth, and that was just such a weird. It was like straight out of Airplane, with the woman in first class who's just. Losing her mind. Everybody comes up in a line. They like smack her.
Well, to me, I don't know. I thought that was very in sync with what they had developed with her in terms of how she was controlling things there. I mean, she smacks Beth, but I think a lot of that was. Then she turns around and she says, because I made a note on this, to the doctor, try to grasp the stakes here. In other words, if you don't do as I say, I will punish other innocent people that, which will be on your head. In other words, I can't do anything to you because I need you, but I will do something to other people that will hurt you. And I think that this is going to come back to something that I want to talk about a little bit later, but there was a relationship developing between Beth and the doctor. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Dawn was not aware of that or unaware of that. And it was kind of like a threat to Beth to get the doctor motivated to do what she wanted him to do. You know what I mean? That's how I read that scene.
Well, it was. See, the thing is, though, is that she's not. I think in order to make it work, we needed to see more of the complex of the group that was there. It was basically just Officer Lerner, the Dr. Beth, Creepy Gorman, and Noah. And that was basically it. And there comes a point later on in the episode after the infamous, which was just disgusting in itself, the whole lollipop incident with Beth and Gorman, where even you could tell like even Gorman has no tolerance for her, for Officer Lerner, and because he makes that comment, he's like, things would be different if she wasn't here, and she registers some disgust with him, but yet she, as we played in the beginning, she's got that she made that statement that basically, basically she's got to give pretty things to her people to keep them happy, and happy people stay motivated to work for the cause. So there were just a lot of things that I liked because I like my bad guys sociopathic, but they didn't quite connect. They were like strewn about, but not connected enough to make her cohesive. And there were a couple points when there was almost like a tenderness to her that in The Governor, he used tenderness as kind of a weapon, as an instrument to get himself close to somebody and kind of sway them to his side, kind of thing. I didn't get that from her. I actually got that was the woman inside the officer, right? So when she sits down with Beth and tries to get Beth to eat, I didn't get. That was a moment where I got that's the true woman right there. She stripped away all the power and all the officer. There's a true woman there, woman to woman. She's showing some empathy there. And then she gets up.
Well, it was empathy, but it wasn't. It was manipulation. I mean, it wasn't really empathy. She didn't want her to eat for her, to nourish her. She wanted her to eat so that she could continue to work and provide service. And she was trying to motivate her and manipulate her into, not basically, deteriorating, because that's not going to be useful to her.
Right.
So I think for
me,
me,
the same token, but then later on, when Beth escapes, or even anybody who wanted to escape, that's a waste of manpower to go running after them. If you're trying to look, we go out, we saved you, and we bring you back here. Now you work for the cause. Okay, I get that. We put forth effort, but if they want to run away, why expend the manpower and the effort to go get them? Just let them go.
Well, I don't know how far they got. I mean, if they'd gotten out, it seems like they didn't have any effort. They didn't make any effort to go after Noah. I mean, I think once you get out the compound, they're not going to waste their time with you, just for the very reason you're saying. I think you're right. I think they're not going to waste their time on that. But, each person is providing, I guess, an important labor, contribution, and they can't afford really to lose that. And certainly Dawn feels that way. She doesn't lose the pages because they're the source of keeping the officers under control. Or at least that's what she thinks. She's convinced herself of that, or whatever. I saw the character of Dawn as a good person that set out to set up a good system, and that it just, at this point now, 2 years in, has completely derailed, and she's losing control of it, and in turn is losing control of her own self. I mean, she's becoming OCD. That's where all the cleanliness comes from, all the press suits. I mean, all the emphasis about how she wants everything to be neat and clean, and she's exercising, and, she's definitely OCD. I mean, look at the way they were dressed like they were in, academy, in the academy, right? So, but that's all part of trying to give off the impression of being wrapped tight. You know what I mean? When I think inside, actually, she's losing it. She's totally starting to lose it. And there's lots of scenes, indicators of that throughout the episode. Joan says that, you don't have control over these guys. Mm-hmm. I will, she says, but you don't, and I'm not going back to them, and you're losing it. And Noah says she's losing it, and it's all going down in a hell basket, and he wants to get out. So I think Beth just comes in at a point where it's just starting to completely unravel. And I think that's just totally shattering everything. Right. It's going to be impossible to keep it going if no one's coming.
Well, that was one thing that I thought was interesting. Was, again, it was in the margins of the episode. There were the things that I liked when Dr. Edwards is takes Beth out on the roof and talks about the jets that were dropping bombs. So there's basically a battle for Atlanta. There was, again, it adds color to what was going on behind the scenes when everything went to hell.
And that's what I liked about this episode. I would not want 4 episodes about this place, you know what I mean, and about Beth in it. Yeah, I mean that would be
Right.
a nightmare, just like the 2 episodes of The Governor. But as a standalone, to give us some background, to give us some history, to show us what another possible situation would be like, I thought that was the strength of it. I wanted to go back to one of the first things that I really liked about was I just thought the doctor, Eric Jensen is the actor. I just thought he was super convincing and sympathetic, and I thought it was a fantastic twist to have it turn out that basically he's as much a part of Crazy Town as Dawn and anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
and just a manipulative and looking out for himself kind of thing, and I thought he did a fantastic job, and I really liked his character. I thought there were some great scenes with him. The scene obviously in his office, where he says, "I used to think I was drowning in research, and now I feel like I'm suffocating in the desert."
That was a great
I thought
line.
that was great. That whole scene is cool because she brings the scene prior. She's in the cafeteria getting the food, and you have the whole run-in with Gorman, and he's basically threatening her because of what she's taking, and she's starting to get the picture that anything she takes for herself is going to result in more time and more debt. But then she shows up at the doctor's office, and I thought she was bringing her own food to sit and eat with him.
Yeah, I did too.
Right. And then she sets the food down, and it's clear that she's servicing it. She's waiting on him, almost like a slave. And I thought, there's a really very subtle, I thought, but really well done contrast between the doctor and Gorman. And in some ways, for me, I felt that they were both trying to possess Beth, but they were just doing it in different approaches. But ultimately, both were just as evil. And, in the lollipop scene, Gorman says, when he gets interrupted by the doctor, he says, she was supposed to be mine,
Mm-hmm.
which left, what's important about that statement, in my opinion, is not what was said there, but what wasn't said there. So if she's not Gorman's and she was supposed to be Gorman's and he's pissed off about that, whose is she?
Right.
She's the doctor's. So
Right.
he's just not going about it in a rapey, assaulting way. He's trying to smooth talk her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But obviously he's made some sort of deal with Dawn that this is his party doll. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is it just creeped all of a sudden he became, right in the beginning, he's this sympathetic character. I really liked him and everything. And then all of a sudden he just became just as creepy as Gorman, if not worse. You know what I mean?
I was done with him at that point. Yeah.
So, but that was just, I thought, fantastic writing and great acting on his part. I loved the whole reference to the artwork. His statement about the painting has no place anymore. Art isn't about survival. It's about transcendence, which I thought was a metaphor for the transcendence of Beth that we see in this episode. She really kind of represents the ability to do both that in this world, to be artistic and emotional and human, and yet also survive. I mean, she's gotten this far, and it's not because of, granted, she's had help with Daryl and the Rick Grimes crew and everything else, but plenty of people have also died with them. So, and here she still is. So she's still, and through the whole episode, everyone's telling her she could never survive. She's weak. She's, she doesn't have what it takes. She's drags everybody down, but, she's still here and she's still human. And, I thought that was really cool, and how they used the art and the painting to kind of do that. But then again, came back to the painting again with the whole story of the St. Peter, and the fact that the doc was really identifying with St. Peter,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he lied about being a disciple of Christ when they questioned him about or challenged him about it, in order to avoid any persecution himself. So that was just, and if you look at the picture too, and I don't think this is a coincidence, that painting with the picture of St. Peter, he's slightly balding and he's got a full beard and mustache, and so did the doctor.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. Should I keep going, or you want to jump in?
No, keep going.
I got a bunch of other stuff. Okay.
Because your list is going to be longer than mine.
I love the way the whole thing was shot. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning. One of the standouts for me was the high contrast slow-mo in the escape scene. I just thought that was really cool. And it almost kind of went black and white, and had this kind of George Romero movie-esque kind of feel to it. I thought that the long hallway shot in the very beginning, when she's just kind of feeling this place out, and the doctor stops to talk to Dawn, and she steps away, and you get this almost claustrophobic long hallway shot. And at the end, there's this one guy who's mopping the floor, and there's this weird kind of bluesy music playing, and I just the way it was lit and everything else, and then you get other shots of that long hallway a lot through the whole episode. You get the long drop down into the elevator, just these kind of vertigo-inducing shots of twisty funhouse, almost scary, distances,
right?
Which made it very haunting and creepy. The whole episode was creepy because of the way it was shot, I thought. The cellar zombie shootout, where you're only getting to see the zombie, in a flash of the muzzle.
The muzzle flash, yeah.
Oh man, again, just
that reminded me of. Did you ever see the movie Equilibrium with Christian Bale and Tate?
That is such a great movie and so underrated and it's underappreciated. Everybody listening should go out and freaking see that movie on Netflix if you haven't. It's really cool. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, that scene
totally sold me on him.
Yeah, the movie reminded that scene reminded me of the scene in the movie, the kata of the gun, where basically there's this massive shootout in this room. It's all pitch dark, and Christian Bale is all alone in the room. They send a bunch of bad guys after him, and all you see is just muzzle flashes, and you see the guys getting hit and all the action just through the staccato muzzle flashing. It's Equilibrium from 2002. Check it out.
Oh, it's awesome, and I'm gonna little insight here in terms of my artistic process. But if for those of you who are listening, are Z Girl and the Four Tigers fans, in the final issue here, issue 5, there's a sequence where Red Tiger has a whole page of 9 panels, right? I think, where it's just she's like shooting zombies and it's just this her and 2 guns and a sea of zombies and 9 panels, and that's completely influenced by that movie and that a couple of the different fight scenes in that movie with guns that I just had never seen anything like, and I just kept watching that and then trying to apply it to that sequence, and it's a great flick to check out. Let's see. I thought the character development of Beth, really came through in this episode for me. I've felt she's always been kind of underdeveloped and written in previous seasons. They started to work on it in the Daryl episodes with her, but we didn't get far. But we see it kind of really come to fruition in this episode. I kind of wish they started her out. If I had to put it on a scale, I would say say it's like 1 to 10, and I'd say the time she spent with Daryl brought her up to like a 5, let's say, in terms of her survival abilities and toughness and all that kind of stuff. I'd say this episode starts off and she's more like at a 2.5 or a 3, and that I felt like wasn't fair. You know what I mean? She should, but I think they did that on purpose to give the story more, her development to the end, so much more strength. But when by the time she decides finally that she's had enough of this place and she's done with it, you can just really see how all that teaching and that time on the road and out in the with the team Rick and with Daryl especially, it just really was influencing her, and Carol and everybody else. The pinnacle for that for me was when she stomps on the head of the zombie in the escape.
Yeah,
I mean that was a Daryl or a Michonne move. You know what I mean? I thought. I mean, it's how many times we send them stomp on the heads of a zombie. I would never have thought Beth would ever do that. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of cool. Let's see. Yeah, again, I think that in addition to Beth's development, I think we're also being shown throughout the episode the ongoing question of the series of can you survive in this world and hang on to your humanity, and how strong you have to be to lead with compassion rather than fear and abuse. And we even though Rick isn't in this episode, it's impossible to not look at um, Dawn Lerner there or Officer Lerner and not compare their styles, just like we did with Gareth or the governor. It always becomes a comparison kind of with Rick, and like the ability to hang on to your sense of humanity. I mean, the fact that she allows this rape culture to go on in order to justifiably in her mind because it satisfies placates the officers and allows her to maintain control is somehow acceptable, and given the circumstances, and that to me that's a loss of your sense of humanity,
and I wonder too if that's not a condition of her. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is the Wild West. The entire world's been, as far as we know, it's been turned into basically the lawlessness of the Wild West. And I wonder if that's not a factor of her being a female leader. That's in order for somebody to take her seriously, in order for to get somebody like a Gorman to follow her. Look, you've got somebody like the governor, right? He walks into a room, he's a commanding presence. He's got the size, he's got the he just walks and takes over. Garrett, same thing. They're commanding presences. A female, however, a little bit different. Yeah, she's got the gun and she's got the uniform, so she's got the look, but she's still a woman. And someone like a Gorman would just blow through that, right? But if she makes the concession that, well, here's how I lead, I do what I say, and I'm going to give you little toys to play with on the side, it kind of inspires loyalty in especially for degenerates like someone like Gorman. So yeah, I wonder if that's a factor of that.
Well, I think that I'm sure some will see it that way. I don't, because I think that obviously Gorman has no respect for Dawn. I mean, in the way that he talks about her, it's clear he wants her out of the way. He doesn't like her. He doesn't respect her as a leader. And I think if you're gonna lead by allowing disrespect of women by the male officers, then they're not going to have any respect for you either, because ultimately you're a woman too. So to me, if that's her thinking, if that's her strategy, that's why it's going to backfire. Allowing them to maintain this kind of rape culture there is completely disrespects women, and she's a woman, so they're not going to have respect for her eventually, and that is happening in the episode. So in my opinion, to what she should have done in answer to your question is kill Gorman. Say, look, we're not going to have, this is not how we're going to do this. Well, blah, blah, blah. If you don't do it, boom. Okay. You don't play, then, then those guys are going to be a lot more respectful in the way that they are of the governor. Right. So that would have been another way to approach it. I'm not saying that would be good either, but I'm just saying it's an all, I don't buy that, the idea that that's the only way she could maintain control.
And that was one of the shortcomings that I had with her, was that I didn't see how she could, for 2 years now, how she could be in charge of that facility or run that crew. She's again, you put her up against the governor. He inspires loyalty. You could see how he'd be a hard guy to kind of take down. You know what I mean? By his own people. Her, I didn't see that at all. I needed more. I needed to see more about her in
but I think that's why it was falling apart. I mean, the governor did it because he was ruthless and everyone was scared of him, and she's trying to appease them, and it's ultimately degrading and undermining her authority, and that's clearly starting to unravel. At this point, I thought the doc says to about Dawn to Beth at one point, I think when they're up on the roof, she kept us together, she kept us alive. And Beth says, if you call this living, which was a direct echo of Michonne's conversation with Rick, where she's says, I don't know what that was when I was back there being inhuman almost, but
Right.
it wasn't living,
Right.
And again, I just thought, I love how the show, is continuing even in a standalone episode that seems unrelated to the main story, ties in the main message. Thought that was really cool. Since we started talking about it, I thought the other thing was the way that the whole rape culture and the festering of that in the hospital was really well handled in this episode. And it's a very obviously uncomfortable and disgusting, aspect of this place, but it wasn't done in an exploitive way. And I thought that to me made it even more realistic and more scary. Like, for instance, the close in the very beginning when she's walking down that hallway that I mentioned about seeing the guy at the end with the mop and broom, and then she walks by the room and the officer is coming out, and the woman behind is shutting the door, and you just get this kind of yicky, icky, creepy feeling of there's some bad stuff going on, and then of course the storyline with Joan and that horrible amputation scene, and she's saying, "I'm not going back to them. You can't control them." Again, that just without having to show an actual exploitive kind of scene, they were able to really communicate what was happening there, and how horrible it was. And then of course, probably one of the most sadistic, upsetting scenes of the series was that whole that lollipop scene with Gorman and Beth. I mean, that was in some ways on a par with the Terminus slaughter for me, because the Terminus slaughter was cold-blooded and unemotional and terrifying in its brutality, but it wasn't sadistic. They weren't doing that to torture those people. They were doing it to, in their mind, cattle, to eat and survive. This was just all about sadism and torture and power, and it was just a really, really effective scene to communicate that. And what else? I thought the amputation scene was, again, I agree with you. It was like over the top. And, it's funny. I was having a conversation with someone else today about that scene and that scene came up, but the conversation was about how are they going to handle Negan and his swearing, because they couldn't even say the F-bomb when they were in the A-Train car, at the end of that last season's episode, and how upsetting that was. But what are they going to do with Negan? I mean, a big part of his whole, identity is wrapped up in his unbelievable tirades of curse words. So how are they going to do that? And I remember pointing out, like, it's kind of upsetting that they can show a scene like that amputation that we just saw on Joan's arm, but they can't swear.
Right.
To me, I just see that as, I don't get that, but anyway, that's TV at this point. But I thought it made even more powerful by the fact that you had to imagine that Beth is having thoughts of her father in that situation, because he lost his leg and had to have that amputated, and that must have brought all that back. And that was just, that was really, that was well written, I thought, and a good choice for that. I liked Noah. Did you like Noah?
I did.
Yeah.
Noah says that he's going to go out, he wants to get out and he wants to hook up with his uncle. Did you think Morgan?
It's interesting you said that, because again, in this conversation I was having with this other person earlier today about the show, he says a couple things that are interesting. He says he's from Richmond. Right. Richmond's in Virginia. Yep. Alexandra is in Virginia. Yep. And he also says we had it together, or we knew what we were doing. We had walls. And that reminded me of what we know is coming in the future here, based on the book. And that could be. I don't know that. Yeah, that could tie in. But definitely, I think there's a tie-in with him in Washington. And I think that he'll hook up with them and help lead them back to that. I loved his line about when he introduces himself, he's the Lollipop Guild. Yeah. That was great. I thought also that, again, just for me, great writing. They have him make a speech about how the people at the hospital, they think I'm scrawny, they think I'm weak, they don't know shit about me. And to me, that was the writers talking about Beth,
Right.
to us. And I thought that was great. I thought the final scene with Gorman was really, really great. It was nerve wracking. It kept me on the edge. And then the way that she's smart enough to like maneuver that situation so that she can utilize the zombie that's just starting into awake. And I love the fact that she uses the lollipops to smash his head. That was a nice twist there. So those were my main things that I liked.
All right, so my main goods are basically, as I already talked about, getting a little bit of backstory on Atlanta and hearing about what was going on in the world when everybody started going into survival mode and the Battle of Atlanta. I liked, as you talked about, the doctor up until we discover that he's part of the system himself. The escape scene with the muzzle flashes illuminating. I liked. But I think probably the thing I liked the most was the elevator shaft. For disposal of. Not only did I like it as disposal of all the zombies, but then later that's their escape route is to like land on this bed of zombies or bodies and try to escape from there.
And I wonder if it was done on purpose. But did you notice when she jumps down to join him, she goes face first into that pile. Oh,
yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Just gross. But that was cool.
That's all I got for good. So what's your bads?
My bads are a little bit on the nitpicky. We've kind of talked about it already. It was a little bit slow in parts. Like for instance, the doctor and her on the roof. I thought, I liked getting a little bit of the background, but it got a little bit talky, and like we talked about also the deceleration, from the first 3 episodes, as much as, we can't, and I've already said it, we can't expect that kind of level of pace season wide. And it's nice to get a breath once in a while. As a person who really loved those first 3 episodes, it's hard to slow down, so that was a negative. It had no Beth singing, so that's good.
Oh my God! In the beginning, when she was like,
she did say
I
sing.
I was like, oh, no,
I was like, oh no, here we go. Well, she did hum.
Don't do it.
She did hum.
Yeah,
she did hum. Right. I had some problems with the believability. That 2 years into the situation, 2 years into the apocalypse, and that this place is still able to be so such a tight ship, so clean. All the electricity, even if they've got generators, which most hospitals have, you got to fuel those things. Well, we're 2 years in. Any nearby fuel is used up. You know what I mean? And they weren't like skimping. They had lights on in every room, and they were turning equipment on and off. It just, it was. And you talked about this at the beginning, and I think you hit a nerve. I think you're right. It just, I think they did it in the beginning and give you a little what's the word I want? What?
Disconnect?
Yeah, a little disconnect and kind of derail you a little bit. So you didn't know if this was a flashback, if this was a dream, if this was current, if this was way in the future, and that part I dug. But then as the episode went on and on more, it was like, man, this is a little hard to swallow that, these guys' hair would be cut so well and their uniforms would be so pressed and that there'd be power everywhere. And that was a little hard to, at this point, if we were 6 months in maybe, but we're 2 years in or more.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yep.
Holding the IV needle as a weapon in that opening scene, that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Take the IV out because you want to be able to get mobile and be ready to move. You don't want to drag it around an IV cord while you're trying to fight. Right. Makes sense. But you're going to hold it up like a little stabby knife.
Like what are you going to do?
I'm going to stick you like a pincushion. What the heck were they? Oh, that was bad. And then another little picayune thing, geography. In fact, the geography of the whole last 2 years. Well, I was totally discombobulated that we're back in Atlanta now. How could we be back in Atlanta? When they left the CDC, they were heading like north, if I remember right. And they didn't go back through the city, which would be heading south, I think. So they were either heading northeast or northwest, and they've been traveling for 2 years or a year since then, at least. And like they're back in, that's a pretty far distance for those cops to be going out looking for ammo. Right. I don't know. It's a little hard to swallow that we're all the way back in Atlanta, So, did you have any issue with that, or that didn't bother you?
Yeah, no, I definitely did, and it's funny you bring that up because with Tom DeRosa again on Facebook, we were talking about he had a question about what do you think the timing of all this is? She's been gone quite a while, and then Carol at the end, which I want to back up and say that's one of my goods was I love the Carol appearance at the end. But so I went and I found the Walking Dead wiki timeline, and just to see where this all, because it really does feel, and again, we see it week by week, so it kind of feels like more days are. These episodes happen across a span of days, maybe even weeks, as opposed to maybe they do only take a day or a couple hours. But according to the wiki timeline, Beth's abduction was on day plus 507. So 0 hour or whenever this apocalypse happened, the conflict happened, the outbreak, 507 days later is when this happened. So that's roughly, a year and a half is when she's abducted. Okay, so that's 507. And again, like I said, this is the wiki timeline. Daryl gives up his hunt for her on 508.
I loved your comment on that. You didn't what was your comment in parentheses?
So I said Daryl gives up his hunt for her on day 508. My comment was, really? Just a day he spent looking for her? Some hunter he is. Like, can't find it anymore. I give up.
I got blisters. I've given up.
I'm done. Yeah. Beth apparently wakes up in Grady on 509. So 2 days after she was abducted, she wakes up in 509. Which doesn't make any sense because they say that they found her with a rotter halfway up her thigh, but yet she was picked up in a car that had the cross on the back. Something's wonky there. But anyway, 509, the group apparently arrives at Terminus on 511, so 4 days after she was abducted. According to the timeline, then Daryl and Carol depart on 512, and Daryl returns on the eve of 513. So someone's figuring that only 6 days have gone since her abduction to the time Daryl comes back. I don't buy it. I think it's longer than that, but who knows? But I get what you're saying
if that's accurate. It adds again even more to my feeling. Yeah, my uncomfortableness with the geography because, they should be days, if not, at least days away from Atlanta by car.
Right.
You know what I mean? At this point.
Yeah.
And they're like walking.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of disbelief there on that one. And then the only other bad I had was, the fact that Beth all of a sudden is a dead-eye shot with a pistol while running with her hand in a cast.
Don't forget holding the gun in her casted hand that's supposed to have a fractured. Now, if you've ever fired a weapon, I know you haven't, but if you've ever fired a weapon, there's some kick on that, okay? Yeah. If you've got a fractured wrist, it don't feel too good.
No, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt. Yeah. And you're running, and she hit every one of the zombies in the head.
Yeah.
So she really got good when she was hanging out with Daryl, I guess. But those are really my only bads. What about your ugly?
Well, no, hold on a second. I got to get into my bad. So.
I thought that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Yes, what's your bads?
The big one for me was that I'm not a fan of Beth to begin with, and this episode did nothing to instill much more faith in her. Thank God she didn't sing. So there's that. But I'm going to take the opposite side of the article of the argument. I don't think that. I thought it was very interesting that the recap we saw in the beginning with her with Daryl and how she sees that tracking and she's there's a walker. See, I'm getting good at this. I'm not going to need you anymore. Something along those lines.
Right.
The entire episode, she doesn't show at all that she's a survivor. I don't buy at all that she could survive on her own. And that dead eye shot at the end where she was hitting all headshots, I think that was a force feed to the viewer that no, she really is really good. She could survive on her own. Case in point. So like you saw, like you said in the beginning, she pulls out her little, her IV thing, and she's gonna, poke somebody. There's that. There's when Gorman. At no point does she. God, the Green sisters are awful. First of all, Maggie doesn't give a crap that she hasn't seen her sister in. Well, it depends. I mean, if the wiki timeline is right, then it's only been 4 hours since her sister.
It's funny because everybody's ragging them out. That's like this year's version of, I don't know, there've been different things every season, but this year it's that. And even on Talking Dead, they talk about it now almost every time. It's just like, it's almost become a joke that every episode people are waiting to hear her say something about Beth, and there's freaking nothing.
You know what? They're going to throw a line. They're going to throw a line in when Beth and Maggie get together. They're going to throw a line in there where Maggie was like, I was never worried. I always knew you were alive. That's why I didn't ask about you. And I'm going to
watch next week.
Right?
It'll be dubbed in. The camera will be on Glenn, and you'll hear some
voiceover.
Yeah. Hey, what happened to my sister?
So Beth comes to, and I get that you're disoriented and stuff, but how long does it take her in the episode to say that she wants to leave Crazy Town? Like right from the get-go, she'd be like, where are my clothes? I got to get out of here. Hey, did you see anybody else? Or, inquiring about other people. She's in this, she's all doe-eyed and baby-face in this environment, and she's just buying it. Okay, fine. When later on, with Gorman and the whole lollipop incident, she doesn't fight back. Like there's no resistance at all. There's no point where she's never in. There's no stakes on her at all in here. All it is one woman telling her, you owe us. We saved you. You owe us, and therefore, and that was the only thing that was put on her. She's not being physically abused. She's not being handcuffed. There's no stakes on her. She can walk around with ease. And I get that she's the doctor's toy, and he's kind of, that's how he plays with his toys, but it's still, there were no stakes on her. Case going further that she's not a survivor, when they run out and she's with Noah, there are 4 parked cars sitting right there. They run right past all the cars and right into the throng of zombies. Moron. So
what was the deal with that parking lot too? They run out and there's like zombies. There's a two layers of caged in area. There's like a caged in area, and there's zombies inside that area. What the heck?
And then Noah gets past the second perimeter, which apparently there are no zombies past there. So yeah, I didn't get it either.
Maybe they were using the zombies to help keep people in. Maybe that was the whole point of the doctor bringing her down to show her that there was no hope, out there, and that her best bet was to try and make this work. And that's what they do to people. They surround the building. That's why they leave the first floor full of zombies, to help keep people from getting out. But there had to be some way to get in, because they were constantly bringing in new people. Remember?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
there had to be a decent. But they got to go down the elevator and go in the slop around in the dead bodies. What the heck?
Yeah. And the other thing threw me off,
I agree.
And the other thing that threw me off too, and who else brought this up? I want to get our listener right, because we can't afford to lose any of them. Was it
any of the 3?
Yeah. So Gary Dombrowski brings it up on Facebook, and I agree with him. I was trying to resolve it in my head. I watched it a couple of times just to see if I lost something. Was as Gary said, he said, I found it interesting is that the doctor said that if the cop found out if Officer Lerner found out that the patient was a doctor, she would throw or kick out, she'd basically get rid of Dr. Edwards. But Beth found, and Beth had found the doctor's ID card in Lerner's office in the file cabinet. Okay. So when you look at that scene, what was his name? Gary Trevitt. I know his name was Trevitt. I think it's
the oncologist.
Anyway. Yeah, so when they bring the body in, remember it's the scene of they're talking about the painting. It's Beth and Dr. Edwards, and Lerner sticks her head in. She goes, "We got another one." They go to save, they go in there, and Dr. Edwards goes to work. And what is the cop that's in there? It wasn't Gorman, it was another one. The cop says his name is Gary Trevitt. We found his wallet. His name is Gary Trevitt, and Edwards is going to work on him, and then the camera turns, and we see the officer walk up to Lerner, and she's just standing at the wall just watching, like she's concerned about what's going on. And the officer leans in and says something to her, quiet, and all of a sudden she perks up, and she becomes more alert, and then she steps forward, and she's like, all right, you said you always want to save somebody, save him. They knew right then and there that was a doctor. That's why she perked up. So his whole thing later on about, well, if she finds out that he was a doctor, then she wouldn't need me.
I think that was a misunderstanding. I think his concern was not that they find out that he was a doctor. The concern was that they find out that he knew that it was a doctor.
No,
because he was going to let he wants to let the guy die, but he wants it to look like it was a natural cause. And the only way a big help to that is the fact that he doesn't have any idea that it's a doctor. That's why they whisper it and because they don't want him to know, because they don't want him to undermine it. But he knew the guy. He just didn't let on that he knew the guy. See what I'm saying?
No, that violates what he said at the end. He tells Beth at the end, I had to get rid of that guy because if she found out he was a doctor, she wouldn't need me anymore. Well, she already knew he was a doctor.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think that maybe that was just a bad catch on the writer's part or whatever. I mean, in terms of his wording, but clearly they knew it was a doctor because the cop whispers her, like you said, and then she becomes all much more interested in it. And but the important thing for him was that they didn't know that he knew, because he was going to kill this guy, but he had to make it look like it was not his fault. You know what I mean? Because if they knew he knew, then they would know that he did that. And that
if they knew that he knew what they knew that he didn't know, then I don't buy it.
You don't buy it? Okay.
Nope. And then the other thing I had is the thing that you liked is the thing I don't like was, okay, they bring the first victim in and they've got enough portable generator power to run an ultrasound machine to discover that he's got blood fluid in his lungs.
Right.
They've got an iron lung, or not an iron lung, but a respiratory machine in another room and yet when it comes time to saw the girl's arm off, they use basically the same kind of wire you find in a camping knife, in the handle of a camping knife. You don't have a saw?
They were doing to her arm what Rick was doing to the wood panel in the train car to make a stabby thing, a stabby tool.
Exactly.
I think he was using the chain to the watch. Oh,
so I didn't.
That was a gruesome scene. Yeah, that scene was just done to, I think, to just give you the whole.
That was shock and awe.
Yeah, B-movie blood shock. Yeah.
All right. So what was your ugly?
My ugly was a good ugly. I kind of really already talked about it. It was the escape sequence. Except for, her unlimited ammo and her dead-eye shot. I thought it was awesome. I like the way it was shot. I love the color. The fact that, they walk out into that light and you almost, it was almost like you're squinting yourself, because of the bright light. But then the contrast made the zombies and everything else look kind of like an old B-rate zombie movie. I loved the stomping on the head as a kind of a physical way for Beth to demonstrate she's not taking this shit anymore. And that she's kind of grown into a full-on badass. I like that she looks back to see Noah, and then when she looks forward and sees this huge entourage of zombies, and it's like impenetrable, it's impossible. But then she looks back and sees Noah and realizes, kind of like we've seen others, Michonne, Daryl, Rick. I have to do this because I have to save this other person. I have to do this. I can't walk away from this. And then she charges into it and battles her way through and allows him to get through. And, whether you believe he could or couldn't have gotten through and, her shots and all that stuff, I agree. But to me, that I thought it was a great way to show her stepping up. And then the second part of my ugly was the Carol at the end, when Beth is finally, got the knife in her hand and she just doesn't care what the ramifications are going to be. She's going to end this crazy train. And then they reel in Carol, and all of a sudden, there's just this wonderful cliffhanger of, how did Carol get there? And now she needs the doctor. She can't kill the doctor because she's got to, if Carol needs his help, and, is she going to let on that she knows, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought that was really well done. It was a very Robert Kirkman book kind of cliffhanger ending. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just the only thing that went through my mind when I'm watching Beth laying on the ground, the cops have her and she's watching almost wistfully as Noah gets away. The only thing that went through my mind is what's going through her head is, crap, if only I had taken the car, I'd be with them right now.
That's right.
Yeah, just, and again, you kind of prove my point about her not proving that she's a survivor, because her whole thing was she could have gotten through. Noah got through. She could have gotten through as well and escaped with him. Or I don't know. She just wasn't very survivorly to me. My ugly though is a good ugly, and that's the Carol reveal at the end. It was one of those where, as I'm watching Beth come down the hallway holding the scissors, and I'm like, oh, is she really going to go with this? Is she going to sing first or sing after? When's it going to happen? And then they come wheeling in, and you see Carol on the gurney. You're just like, whoa. So now you know what the speculation is. What some people speculate is that how did Carol get on the gurney? And one of the theories, or one of the possibles, is I saw some people talking about, is that Noah runs into Daryl and Carol, and she's basically, Carol's playing possum to get on the inside. You saw that one too?
I think so. I think that my guess is that Daryl and Carol followed the car back to the hospital, that they're watching and have been observing what's going on, trying to figure out what next move. They see this escape take place. They see Noah get out, so they grab him. He tells them that Beth's in there, she's alive, and what the whole story is in there. So they come up with this plan to send Carol in order to have someone on the inside, someone badass on the inside. And the Daryl takes him back in order to get reinforcements and get the rest of the group to come back so that they can bust the two of them out. Yeah, that's what I think too. And something that also led me to think that even more was, there was just a little sequence when they're up on the roof, and you see there's another officer way up top and he's got a sniper rifle, and so or he's got a rifle of some kind. So they kind of have already set up that there's going to be some sort of a confrontation. I think that they got all these people on the outside. They're going to be a gun battle, and maybe not, but I think so.
Yeah, I think it's a valid theory.
The question is how long is it going to take? Because I think next episode, it looks like we're going to switch gears and do a standalone story with Team Abraham.
Right.
And then maybe we'll come back to the hospital. And we have only 4 episodes left. So if we do Team Abraham next week, then we'll have 3 episodes. My question is, are they going to drag that escape out over 3 episodes? Or are they going to, wrap it up fairly quick and then have something else happen? Maybe the season finale will be reaching Alexandra. I don't know. Yeah,
I think that'd be my guess. Is season finale or the mid-season break is finding Alexandria. I mean, if you got rid of Terminus basically in like 1 episode, I don't see how you're going to drag out this hospital escape.
Yeah, and I hope they don't. I think that what's really been super effective this season has been the pace. And even in this standalone episode that completely changes gears and picks up with a different story, introduces new characters, clearly it wasn't dragged out. I mean, we got to meet all the main players quickly, establish their situation quickly, and have an escape already. And I mean, a lot took place in 1 episode, and I think that's what salvages this kind of standalone scenario, and I hope that that's the same with next week's episode, and then overall with what they're going to do with this hospital scenario.
Yep.
So I think that's been a big plus this season. They're really the pace. It's been great.
All right, need to start wrapping this up. So, what was your character of the week?
Yeah, I think I got to go with Beth. I think that, although the doctor, even though I ended up not liking him, I thought he did a fantastic job, the actor. And I really liked the way that his character was written. But it was good to see Beth finally have some meat in her story to work with, and to show development in that character. She's just never really had that. Even when the Daryl episodes, they had a couple of good scenes together, like when they were getting drunk together and stuff. But this was really a chance for her to really explore the growth in that character. So I'd have to say Beth.
Even though I turned against him at that one point in the show, I'm going to go with the Doctor. I liked him, and I think I kind of mitigate away the creepiness just because it's kind of like that's what you got to play the game in order to survive, and that's how the game.
Yeah, but he
played,
used her. He used her to kill that guy. He made her murder somebody for him.
Yeah. Well,
that's low down, man. And I mean, she was obviously upset about it enough. She was about to cut his jugular. So, but yeah, one theory I read today was that was Andrews, the Dr. Andrews. Is that what that was?
Stephen Edwards.
Dr. Edwards. He's kind of maybe playing out the doctor that was at Woodbury in the comic. Remember that ends up helping them escape.
Mm-hmm.
And one theory is that that he's going to end up helping Carol and Beth escape from this hospital, and but end up not, getting munched. So yeah, I think it's kind of cool how they're taking the comic book characters and their storylines and meshing them into other characters. Like with Tyrese and his storyline, and Carol and Andrea, there's a lot of meshing there, and it's cool. Another theory I just heard about was because you mentioned last week that you felt that there was a little bit of a vibe with Tara coming on to Maggie, and one theory on that is I think in the comic it's Carol suggests to Rick and Lori that they have a 3-way relationship. Remember in the comic?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that they kind of, since all bets are off in terms of society right now, that why don't they just go ahead and have this, and then of course they, totally reject her, and of course that drives her to run out and commit suicide by sending herself into a zombie to get chewed on. And I guess so there's some speculation that they may be writing that aspect of Carol in the comic into the Tara character, and that she maybe start to develop some sort of a crush on Maggie and want to be with Maggie, and then make the suggestion to Glenn and Maggie, and have that be rejected, and have that I don't know play out. Could be cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So zombie kill of the week.
Probably
there weren't a whole lot there.
No, probably just the multiple zombies in the dark down in that basement. That was cool. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. The flashes. That I thought that was kind of something new we hadn't seen before too.
I got to go with the head stomp.
The head stomp. Yeah. That was a good one. I love too how they let the blood go right up all over the camera. Yeah. That was cool. Again, that was very 70s. Kind of horror, B movie horror. We should probably touch on real briefly some of the letters and posts we got. Laura Willis, and Laura, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, but I believe it's Laura Willie Swink. She says, "Hey guys, about last night's episode, it was okay. I give it 2.565. Wow, 3 decimal points. Wow. She's really confident with the math. I give it 2.565 headshots. I did like finally learning what happened to Beth, and I actually felt that Emily Kinney has grown as a performer and was much stronger in this episode. However, I did feel a bit let down after all of the Where's Beth hype. I would have liked to see some of our core group, at least Daryl and Carol. Plus, these Slabtown goons do not seem nearly as threatening as the termites, Joe's group, or the governor. They seem like there'll be no challenge at all for Team Rick to crush. I did like the new character of Noah, and that swarmy tit-for-tat Officer Gorman really gave me the creeps. So glad he got his just desserts.
That's actually a good point she brings up, that it was kind of a letdown that all this Where's Beth just kind of like, I don't know, it's almost sad tromboned out. This is where she is, just this, St. Elsewhere type of hospital for ghoulish types. I mean, that's it. And it was just, so I agree with you. I thought that was, I wish there had been a little bit more.
I think it may have. I wonder if the writers were trying to make some sort of a comment on the whole sexual
Obamacare?
slave, no, the sexual slavery industry, and the whole that whole thing, because it seemed like that was kind of the emphasis of the creepiness, and that they were basically going out, and like you brought up, she does wake up and say that she was fighting a zombie. She remembers fighting a zombie. There's no sign of that when Daryl gets to her bag, but then that doesn't mean the zombie didn't wander off. You know what I mean? So, I mean, they may not have killed it, but it's also kind of implied in the episode that they kind of like kidnapped her more than saved her. You know what I mean?
Right.
That they kind of saw an opportunity with this girl, which is, and it's kind of implied that that's kind of what they do. They go out and they find, these young women and kidnap them and bring them back and put them into this kind of servitude, which is something that actually goes on in the world today.
Yeah.
So anyway, good letter, Laura. Thank you very much.
Let's see. I've already read stuff from Gary and Tom, and Abby Q is back to weigh in. He said, "Sour apple, give me my 42 minutes and 39 seconds of my life back."
No, cut right to the chase, Abby.
Yeah, I found myself looking through Instagram photos, then watching this particular episode, suffocating in boredom.
How do you really feel about it?
He gave it 2 headshots. No decimal places. The good, he liked Dawn, not her character, just the actor, Christine Woods. Wonderful to see her guest star. The last thing I saw her in was Hello Ladies on Showtime, which is now canceled. I'm gonna have to look up that one. Not familiar with that one. The bad, everybody hates Chris, and they still do. The actor who played Noah Everybody Hates Chris. But I'm glad Noah got to escape, only to be mangled by walkers sooner than later, hopefully. Just as an aside, what was her name? Was it Joan or Sharon? The one that they cut the arm off?
Joan.
Joan. It was Keisha.
Yes. She's
Keisha
like an
Castle-Hughes
Academy Award nominated actress, right?
From Whale Rider. Yep.
Oh,
and she's going to be, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, she's going to be in Game of Thrones next season. So that's cool. It's good to see her again. She was a really good actress.
Yeah, what a waste, though, of that talent.
Absolutely. But, mortgage got to get paid. So
yeah, that's true.
Let's see. His ugly Slabtown in general. I really like Emily Kinney. She's such a cutie, good musician, and her eyes are adoring. But Beth, let's just say it would have been a better idea for her to go in 18 Miles Out. She hasn't really contributed to the show in terms of story other than being a babysitter, a singer, and being jailbait for Mr. Dixon. Even Maggie doesn't care about her.
Cold-blooded.
I love this one, though. If Beth survives this season and Sasha doesn't, I will cut off one of my fingers. Take a guess at which one. I'll probably get bashed for this, but it doesn't really matter. I know my Walking Dead TV show in grave details, and this was the Walking Dead XXX parody with the sex scenes cut out. Nice. Yeah, so he didn't care too much for it. He liked Dr. Stephen Edwards, too. All right.
Yeah, that guy did a great job. That actor was great.
Yeah.
Even like the little ticks he had with his glasses and stuff.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. And we've come to yet another episode of Biters.
Now, last week I mentioned we had a new intro music, and I mentioned that prior to actually having sent the new music to our producer. So, needless to say, it wasn't on last episode, but you all know that. Hopefully, this episode will started off with the new music and exits out with it as well. But we appreciate all the comments and feedback, the Facebook posts. Feel free to email us at biterspodcast at gmail.com or post up at the Facebook page, it's just Biters, right? Isn't Facebook/Biters?
Yeah.
And then what's the blog address?
It should be connected. It's
on the Facebook.
Yeah.
And obviously you can follow me at Kirk at BatmanKM, and you can follow Jeff at JMarzek on Twitter. We do a lot of tweeting, and follow us there to keep up. We post a lot of stuff about The Walking Dead, and
also at Biters Podcast. And for any other podcast that you want to listen to, you name the show. We probably have a podcast for it over at southgatemediagroup.com. Go check us out.
Amen.
Big iTunes page filled with things. So check them out.
Just keeps
Really
growing, man. Just keeps growing.
The juggernaut. All right, everybody. We will see. Well, we won't see you, but you'll hear us again next week.
That's right. We'll be back, and the next week episode is called what? I just
ask me that.
read it. Oh,
we'll get it's well.
We're both scrambling to try and Google this.
IMDb come up. It is. Don't refresh. The Choice.
Choice.
That's what it is. The Choice.
Interesting. The Choice.
We'll catch you all next week.
All right, man. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Let's catch you.
Go out and vote tomorrow.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.